Thank you for clicking on this video. Welcome back, friends. I remember the moment the phone rang. It was the police. And in that single, shattering chime, the dam inside me finally broke. 5 years of swallowed bitterness, of seething rage, of meticulous, ice-cold planning, it all crystallized into one sharp, undeniable truth. Justice had arrived, not as a gentle dawn, but as a lightning strike. But to understand the sweet, silent triumph of that call, you need to drown in the bitterness of how I got here. 5 years. 5 long years of my life, bled onto checks, signed away to a house that was never mine. I wasn't living there, but a ghost of me haunted every room, my ambition and exhaustion mortgaged for their comfort. I cloaked it in the language of duty, of gratitude for the childhood they gave me. But a quieter, more desperate part of me whispered that loyalty was a two-way street, a bridge I was building from both sides. Then came the wedding, my younger sister's wedding, the golden child whose very footsteps were applauded. I stood in that glittering hall, a glass of cheap champagne turning to acid in my hand as my father took the microphone. His voice, thick with a pride I had never heard directed at me, announced his grand gesture. He handed her the keys, their house, my payments. A gift, he called it. A foundation for her new life, built on the graveyard of my sacrifices. I remember the sound, my sister's ecstatic squeal, the crowd's roaring applause, the rustle of my mother's tissue. But louder than all of it was the screaming silence in my own chest. Not a single glance came my way. My name was a ghost in that room. I had been meticulously, completely erased from my own story. In that moment, something shattered. But the pieces didn't fall. They rearranged into something harder, sharper. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I painted a smile on my face, hugged my sister, and congratulated her on the beautiful home I had bought her. It was only in the dead of night, staring at the ceiling of my rented apartment, that the full, grotesque picture came into focus. The overtime hours, the skipped vacations, the life I had deferred, all of it, signed away in a flourish of someone else's pen. Betrayal, I learned, doesn't always come with a knife. Sometimes it's just ink bleeding through generations. 2 months later, they came to me, not with apologies, but with their hands out again. "We're thinking of downsizing," my mother said, as casually as asking for the salt. "Your vacation house, it's sitting empty, isn't it?" The sheer, breathtaking audacity of it stole my breath. I set my fork down. The calmness I felt was terrifying. "No," I said. "You can't move in there." The shock on their faces was a confession. They had expected my compliance, my endless well of blind loyalty. But the well was dry, and they were too selfish to have noticed the drought. That night, the last vestige of their child in me died. I became their adversary. I didn't rant. I didn't rage. I became a student of my own ruin. I pored over deeds, titles, and bank records until the numbers bled behind my eyes. I knew the journey of every dollar I had ever sent them. While they slept soundly under the roof I funded, I was in the shadows, sharpening my silence into a blade of cold, hard facts. Revenge, I discovered, isn't a fire. It's a glacier, slow, deliberate, and utterly crushing. My first move was to stop the payments. The house was theirs in name, so let the burden be theirs in truth. Second, I enlisted an attorney, a man who understood that paper could be a more potent weapon than any sword. Together, we built a case, brick by legal brick. Every payment I had made was not a gift, but a loan, documented, traceable, enforceable. Third, I severed the financial cord completely. No more lifelines, no more bailouts. Not a single penny would leave my hand without my purpose etched onto it. And then I waited, because desperation is a truth serum. It didn't take long. 2 missed mortgage payments on my sister's gifted paradise, and the facade crumbled. She called me sobbing. "Please, just help us until we're back on our feet." My voice was gentle silk wrapped around a steel refusal. "I can't." The silence that followed was its own kind of bloodshed. Then came my parents, their begging quickly curdling into accusations. Selfish, ungrateful, cruel. The irony was so thick I could taste it, metallic and sweet on my tongue. By then, the legal wheels were turning. The sheriff's notice arrived like a clap of thunder. Their dream home was being repossessed, because of me. The night before their eviction, I went to see them. The air in the house I bought was thick with grief. My father was ashen. My mother's eyes were raw. My sister sat rigid on the couch, her dream lying in pieces around her. I let my gaze travel over the furniture, the photos, the very walls that were a monument to my exploitation. And then I looked at them. "You wanted me invisible," I said, my voice barely a whisper, yet it filled the room. "So I became invisible. You mistook my silence for weakness. It wasn't, it was strategy." My father tried to speak, to summon some last shred of parental authority, but I held up a hand. "No, you don't get to speak. Not tonight." The silence that fell then was the heaviest thing I have ever felt. It pressed down on them, and in their wide, horrified eyes, I saw it, the dawning, gut-wrenching realization that they had not raised a victim. They had created their own executioner. Which brings me back to the phone, to the cops. They told me my parents, in their final, desperate act, had tried to break into my vacation home. They had tried to take what wasn't theirs once again. Only this time, the law I had so carefully aligned myself with was waiting. They were caught, arrested, publicly humiliated. And I didn't lift a finger. I simply stood still, and finally, after all these years, watched the house of cards they built with my money collapse under the weight of their own greed. People ask me if I regret it, if I wish I had been the bigger person, offered one more chance. I look them in the eye and feel nothing but the clean, cold, and absolute peace of a debt finally settled.
Thanks for watching PastQuest. If you enjoyed the journey into history, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing stories from the past. See you in the next quest.